Welcome to Wizard City, where young wizards and witches learn about the vast and rich world around them, the launchpad for hours of adventure and fun. There's a lot of good things going on in this game, but if you ask anyone that grew up with this game what one of the most iconic things about this game is, everyone remembers the music. We're going to dive into the Wizard City Commons and see what makes this music by Nielsen Everhart work so well. Wizard City is a lot of things, but everyone would agree it's happy, joyous, and peaceful, unlike some other parts of the spiral. And the Commons in Wizard City is one of the few areas in the game with absolutely no enemies or dangers, aside from the trolls at the pond, of course. The melody instantly begins as a light-hearted and jaunty clarinet tune. Clarinet is very commonly used in RPG safe areas and villages, as it has a relaxing and very neutral tone. Some other examples of peaceful areas using clarinets as their main melodies: Rito Village from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, or even the other main safe area of Wizard City, Old Town, heavily features clarinet in its melody. To add to the jolly feel of the clarinet, we have some pretty active string pizzicatos under it, which add to that lively energy and make the whole thing feel like it's moving and alive. After the clarinet finishes this first phrase, it's passed to the flute, who does the same thing. Flute is just like clarinet, used for peaceful themes all the time. When writing a peaceful village theme, clarinet, flute, and guitar are almost always the common go-to options, though guitar is used less often for high fantasy and high magic settings. For example, we have the stables from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Yes, this is technically not a flute, but it's sonically pretty similar. This is a very peaceful area. The main title to Genshin Impact. Speaking of the Genshin Impact main theme, there is another melodic device used here that gives the exact same effect as the Wizard City Commons. In the opening phrases of the Commons, you'll notice that we're in A major, and there's a D sharp, even though that isn't in the A major scale. In the Genshin Impact main theme, it's in G major, and there's a C sharp that isn't in the G major scale. This is the usage of the Lydian mode, which is a major scale with a sharped 4. Sometimes, this is called the super major scale, because it makes something sound even happier than just a major scale. It's yet another level above that. If we remake the Commons introduction, but with the D natural, as it is in the major scale, it still functions harmonically, but it loses that happy, joyous component that characterizes Wizard City and the overall theme of this game. Another thing in this beginning section we have to talk about is the way the melody is laid out. This game is kinda quirky in its art and animation style, and overall theming, and the music matches that perfectly as well. If we take this original theme, it's divided into 2 sections, one of 5 beats and one of 3 beats. This imbalance, as opposed to making it more symmetrical, adds more of that quirky character to this game, and helps make it feel more lighthearted and fun, and maybe just a little bit weird. This weird time distribution sets up perfectly for the next transition section that goes into 3-4 very seamlessly, because we're already used to hearing some of the previous section in 3. We go to C major, which is flat 3 in A major, but it works just fine as a chromatic mediant borrowed from the parallel minor. Now that we're basically in C major, the F sharp persists, and that is the raised 4 in the C Lydian scale, preserving that happy Lydian sound. If we look at this line more generally, it follows a specific progression often used to evoke a sense of wonder, this 1, 2, flat 3, 4 type of idea. This is an example of chromatic planing, when music takes a chord structure and moves it around while keeping the intervals the same. This particular progression is frequently used to create a sense of wonder. Some other tracks that use this exact same progression, All of the Rainbow Roads, are famous for using this progression. Clearly, they're building off what had come before. Octopath Traveler, another game about exploration and adventure, almost hides this at the very end of the main theme. The very first galaxy in Super Mario Galaxy 2, Sky Station Galaxy, instantly begins with that exact same chord progression, making the theme of exploration and wonder within this game obvious. Wonder is what Wizard101 is all about, so this almost hidden progression that coincidentally happens to exist is perfect for continuing to set up the theme and feeling of this game. We get to this E-flat chord, which, instead of going to F as the pattern might have you expect, goes to B-flat minor. Just like we went into C major, because that's the flat 3 of A major, E-flat is the flat 3 of C major, so it's preserving that pattern, and that B-flat chord is like a secondary dominant to E-flat, giving us a bit of time to hang out on this borrowed color chord. Making it a B-flat minor chord, which is technically the minor 5 of E-flat, gives it a mixolydian sound, which is the scale where you flat the 7th degree of a major scale. This is a good setup to what comes directly after, because the tonic C chord switches between C and B flat, that flat 7, giving it that same grand and open mixolydian sound. The addition of the violin section to the melody, with some added horn lines, emphasizes that grander and more open sound even more, in contrast with the jaunty Lydian clarinet and flute. We have a bit of a reprise with that flute melody, just inserting it to remind the listener that that happy vibe is still here. The flute, clarinet, and bassoon all join in together to play this little reprise, nicely rounding out the jolly sound, before we're right back into the majestic mixolydian section, with the B-flats in C major again. The horn takes over the melody for the first time, which is always a good instrument for making things sound majestic and grand, which is perfect for Wizard City. The strings echo that melody faintly, a nice touch. We get more instruments, especially brass, joining to emphasize the E-flat chord that we've seen before, which also happens to be the flat 7, the mixolydian chord of the F major chord that follows it. This flat 3, 4, 1 is a very common example of modal interchange that works the same way as before, to just add a bit of interest and flavor. Then the flute repeats something very similar to what the horn played, a nice change of sound to just mix it up a bit. Then we got some sort of bell sounds coming in. Bells are perfect for representing magic, whether it be the mysticism of a music box, tinkling of the glockenspiel, or the celeste sound, forever associated with Harry Potter thanks to John Williams. Then we have a wild return back to A major, the original key of this track. The clarinet does the usual melody, ending on an E, which is in a C major chord. No surprises there. Then with no warning whatsoever, the horn comes in with B and G sharp and throws in that A sharp even, the Lydian sharp 4 of E major, setting us up nicely to make a basic 5-to-1 resolution. The E in the clarinet is in the C chord and the E chord, creating a modulation that is based on a common tone. Because that note is in the original chord and the target chord, it makes it easier and possible to switch between any two chords that share that common note. In this case, C major and E major, the 5 chord of A major, our target key to return to. Notice the melody the strings play here is exactly the same melody as the beginning, but stretched out to take longer and be more grandiose. This is a super common technique that composers use all the time to take a theme and repeat it, but keep it interesting. Then the flute repeats it, with a really nice string tremolo texture over it. Just like before, that G natural gives it a Mixolydian sound, and we have the same major 1 to minor 5 chords as before. Then we have an F major chord in A major. This is just a flat 6 chord in what we call modal mixture, where we just borrowed the 6th chord from the parallel minor, A minor. This flat 6, 4, 5, 1 progression is very common for just adding a bit of drama and spice to something, as that flat 6 really wants to go down a step to 5. It goes into 4-4 from here for a brief interlude, with a lot of light rhythms and syncopations to get us back into that playful feel, contrasted to the slightly more smooth and grand feel that came before it. This gives us just a moment to remember how the Commons feels and what this game is really about, before we go back into this horn melody, with the choir added to the top of it, outlining these open fifths, again for a more powerful and grand sound. Then the horns again, really emphasizing that F sharp on a C major chord, again bringing us back to the Lydian sound. This section is cool as it takes a lot of these ideas, such as the flat 3 borrowed chord, the original main theme, the magical celesta bells, and the grand horn call with Lydian emphasis, and even the music from the main theme of the game. And it combines them all together for a last call out to everything Wizard City is and stands for. It throws in that last A sharp when the horn walks down to the 3rd of the chord, giving that 5 chord the ever-present happy Lydian sound as well, before looping back into the beginning with that happy clarinet tune. I bet you didn't know there's this much genius going into one track of this popular childhood game, but this has been a look at the Wizard City Commons. Let me know in the comments if you think there's some music I should take a look at. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and until the next time, or until you don't pay King's Isle your subscription fee, enjoy your stay in the Spiral.